We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated. Secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
What if I told you that understanding and knowing what your values are for yourself, your big vision idea of what you want your life to look like and feel like, can transform your priorities, your time management? It makes decision making so much easier. And you can easily identify what it is you want to do and where you want to spend your time so that you feel so much better about how that time is spent and what you're doing with your life. And you're not up at night anymore thinking about all the things you should have or could have or would have done if only this or that. So today's guest talks to us about how that works and how that can be applied to our lives and our work for more balanced and efficiency in our life and work. Today we have with us Courtney Cecil, who has a career as an industrial and systems engineer and is head of culture at a Fortune 50 company, and is also the founder of the Working Moms Movement. And I was so excited when I connected with you, Courtney, because it just seemed like so much of what we were doing was aligned in the sense of how we show up and what we prioritize for ourselves. So welcome. So excited to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Lindsay. And I would add to that, a lot of what we focus on in our core skills are very similar. So there's just a
Yeah.
lot of synergy in what it is that we do and how we help and support people and businesses. We just come about it from very different ways. And that's what makes this conversation even more exciting.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And can you tell us like how being clear on what we value really helps us determine our priorities and how we're actually spending our time every day?
Yeah. So as Lindsay is suggesting, I am a huge believer in being clear on what it is that you value as a human, as a family unit, how you show up in the world, how you introduce yourself and deliver your brand. Part of that is just because of my DNA. Part of that is because I've spent the better part of the past 12 years specifically in culture change for organizations, and culture change really is about behavior change and all are oriented around your value system or the pulse and the heartbeat of the organization. So as it relates to individuals, the reason values matter a lot is because it helps create your compass. It helps make a decision making easier. It helps give you more clarity and confidence in what it is that you're doing and how you execute it. And more importantly, it prevents you from spinning and swirling
Yes.
because you are so confident about, you know what, this might not be an easy decision. This might not, and so many decisions, by the way, are not permanent, even though we make them feel like they are. But it's this notion of like, I can stand with my shoulders back and show up in a way that I know this matters. And it particularly matters when when you know, a lot of your podcast listeners, Lindsay, are presumably in the business space, working in some capacity. And one of the ways I think it manifests the most is around the type of job you need. Because so many people, like if we play off that example and the values, so many people will value money over everything, And a lot of that, and by the way, a lot of why you value what you do is because of history and what you've been exposed to in your upbringing and your environment and that sort of thing. So some people significantly value money, some it's flexibility, some it's really being purpose driven in what you do and how you spend your time. Some of it is around the type of structure or the workplace. Like there's so many reasons that people take different jobs, but all of these decisions that I hope people make and why I start with the values is because ultimately it allows you to be intentional. And when you're intentional, you get to design your life instead of it being done for you.
Yes, absolutely. I always like to think of it as this like almost like a tunnel vision, right? Of like once you have that funnel of this is my vision, this is my North Star, this is what I value and what I want to work toward, it either falls in it or it doesn't, right? And it's
Yeah.
very easy and quick. Like you said, it's that confidence to be like, yep, that falls into what I want, or nope, don't have space for that.
Right. And there are only 24 hours in a day. So somehow, some way, we have to fit everything that we want to do and accomplish in that 24 hours. And that
Yes.
becomes a lot easier when you know that what you're doing serves your greater purpose or serves what it is that you value. Because then it allows you to say, you know what? Um, Maybe later, but not right now. This is not something that I have capacity for. This is not something that aligns with my value system or aligns with what it is that I'm trying to prioritize. Because ultimately, when you know what you value, then you know what it is that you prioritize. And then when you know what you prioritize, then you know how to spend your time. So, as an example, Lindsay, just last night, I was having a conversation with somebody. So, again, founder of Working Moms Movement, much of what I spend my time on is helping moms specifically in the work that are in the workforce or helping organizations with maternity retention or something of that nature. But it's how do we keep more women in the workforce? How do we retain them? How do we keep them from burning out because of all of the responsibilities in their plate by time and stress management? And yesterday in this conversation, this woman said to me, "Well, I know what I value. She's making the decision on whether or not to go back to work, and she's like, I know what I value. I value this baby that she's holding. It's a 1 month old." And I said, "You know what? Most women would say they value their family more than anything, but you have to pull that a step further. It's not like I don't want people operating on the surface level. It's okay. Of course, you value your family more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
but what experience are you trying to create for them? Because that's the layer that decision making happens. Are you trying to create a layer or do you want your layer with her to be one where you are always present? Um, or that you are the one that specifically does all the child raising, because that might take you not just down the path of not going back to work, but of homeschooling. Or on the flip side, for me, I because going back, like so much of what people do goes back to the value system of like historical baggage. Well, my historical baggage is I grew up in a small town, really, really, really small town where nobody left ever. And I wasn't exposed to diversity and different countries and different traditions. So what I value is, of course, being close with my kids and raising them. That's why I choose being in a flexible job, but I choose to work instead of not work because I want to have enough money to be able to travel and help them explore the world and experience other people and other traditions. Because I did not have that exposure, and it has influenced me not always in the most positive light. So I think that the more grounded we are on what we're trying to achieve in life and the type of experience we're trying to create, that's a place of empowerment where we can show up with intentionality in the decisions that we make and how we spend that time.
Yeah, and I love how you expand on that and make it really specific versus like, oh, I value family. Like, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? What exactly do you want to do with your family? How do you want to spend that time? Like, you really, combed through that in such a way that you can feel exactly what you're describing and what it is that you value. You can
Yeah.
just feel that more.
Yeah. Thank you.
A lot of times people will feel like they've had an unproductive day or like they were just busy or frantic or the day has passed them by and they get to the end of the day like, gosh, what did I even do? Like, what did I even accomplish? how can their values help them start to change that?
Yeah, well, I will say once again, there are only 24 hours in a day.
Mhm.
And so often we pack them in. So we have very little breathing in our schedules, and that's
Yeah.
part of the challenge is it doesn't allow you the freedom and flexibility to kind of let the wind blow you. So it leaves us feeling constantly frantic, behind, like we are operating from our heels, not our toes. But
Mhm.
when you are clear on what your value system is and what it is, again, that value system influences what it is you prioritize. And while you 100% will never get everything done, because we are human and humans need to sleep and they need to eat and they need to shower and do human related things, you're never going to finish your to-do list. But when you know what you value and therefore you know what you prioritize, what it does is it combs through the noise. So instead of being consumed, like, gosh, so many people spend time watching TV, and they think they don't value that, but clearly they do. And
Yeah.
maybe it's the reorientation around, I value turning my brain off for a half hour. So
Mm.
that, like, how do you give yourself
Yeah.
some space and grace to reorient the narrative that you tell yourself, to allow yourself to watch TV? I don't value TV, and I don't feel like I need downtime like that. So I personally don't watch it, but my husband does religiously every single night for an hour. He definitely needs that. But for me, I spend my free time with this business. I spend my time growing
Mhm.
Working Moms Movement and trying to help people, because that feels more purpose driven to me. That feels more aligned with my personal value system. So even within a family unit, my husband and I are as perfectly made for each other as any couple. But like, that's a perfect tangible example of how even within families, you might have a lot of overlap, and hopefully you do, because you are an aligned unit, but we're still individuals, and every individual needs
Yeah.
to show up differently. So I think that knowing what your priorities are will help you either be at peace with the decisions that you do make, or help you comb through the noise to where you get really narrow on the one thing you have to accomplish. And then the rest of it is just gravy. Like, that's icing on the cake. And that ultimately is what's going to help you be at peace with knowing that you're not going to get everything done, because once again, there are 24 hours in the day and we are only human.
Totally. And I really like what you said there about in the relationship, like we're a unit, but we're also our own individual beings with our own values. And I think recognizing that can help us, kind of let go of some of those maybe codependency tendencies so that we can go back and really look at how are we spending our time, and like, are we sitting on the couch watching TV because our spouse wanted to, when we actually wanted to do something else? Or are we, right? Like, are we fusing in a way where we're doing what someone else wants to do? Or are we really identifying what we want, what we value as an individual, and spending our time that way?
Exactly. So my podcast and my signature program is called the Life Management System. And the whole point of the life management system is that you are orienting everything you do, your entire routine, around what it is you value. And that actually
Mm.
helps free up time. It helps alleviate stress. And so it all needs to kind of hang together. But one of my clients has had a tension point with her husband, because he values that quality time sitting. He values time on the couch. What she values is getting shit done. Like, how do I knock out my to-do list? I cannot be at peace unless that's done. So we've been reconciling how we bring them together. And part of that time together is getting clear on, okay, you can spend time together, but maybe redefine that. Maybe instead of it being TV, you're getting 30 minutes where you're sharing a glass of wine and you're having a more meaningful conversation. So there's still space for you both to do what it is that you want to do, for you, client, to get your to-do list done, and you, husband of client, to sit there and watch TV. But because you care so much about getting time with her, you reframe the time you do spend together so it's less time, but it's jam packed with quality. So that is an example of how you can like two different value systems can still coexist and
Yeah,
accomplish the same thing that fills both cups up.
I love that. And we've also talked about this idea of doing it all. And I want to ask you, to you, what does that mean? And how can we realistically achieve that?
You know, Lindsay, I go back and forth between what I want my narrative to be here because I really do believe you can't have it all. But that is because, to your point, how do I define it? I
Mm-hmm.
don't define it as being able to have 100% perfect execution of everything.
Yes.
So I talk about B minus language a lot. Particularly for working parents, knowing that I work with moms in my B2C business. I work with working parents in my B2B space. Um, but B minus standards are appropriate at the time in life where you have young kids. So often, I mean, I was valedictorian of school. I cannot believe that I am sitting here saying this. I have very high standards for myself.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you're choosing between, do I want to put away all of this? Do I want to, my boy, I have two boys, they're 7 and 9. So they're not great at getting their closet organized. Actually, they're terrible at getting their closet organized. Okay, do I want to have the perfectly organized closet, which is like old me, where I want to have everything put away in their place? Or do I want to sit there and read a book with them? So having it all or doing it, I think it's not doing it all as much as it is having it all. I guess that's probably the nuance. Like,
Okay.
can I do it all? Probably not. Or if I do, it's going to be a B minus standard, but it's more about having it all. Like I think about myself as a proxy. I work in a Fortune 50. I own my own business that requires just as many hours of me in burning the midnight oil. I have two kids I'm very present for. I have a lot of clients that my husband and I entertain. I for his business. I have a very active social life, and I travel probably 50% of the weekends. So I am very and if you were to come to my house at any point in time, it would look like a museum. I feel like I have it all. But I have to lower my standards a little bit. And I absolutely have to ask for help and figure out how to build my village in order to make that happen. So I do think it's realistic to achieve, but only if you lower your standards, you understand the difference between perfection and good enough, and you hire the right support system, or you find the right support system to be able to help around the fringes. So it's like part of me, I feel an obligation to moms everywhere to say, the narrative of being able to have it all is bullshit. You can't, or you can't have it all right now. But I fundamentally disagree with that. I think you can. It's just you have to lower your standards a little bit, and you have to stay in your lane. Like part of why the value system matters so much is because so often it is the societal expectations that we are superimposing on ourselves, and that's very unfair because what your neighbors or your friends or the people you follow on Instagram, what they think their life needs to look like is 100% not what yours needs to look like. I
Yeah.
drive a 2013 car because I don't prioritize a car. That's just not where I want to spend my money. That is because I don't value the car. It is a thing that I need to safely get me from point A to point B, but I'm not going to put my money there. And I'm not going to put my time in washing that darn thing every other week. I don't value it. Some
Yeah.
people 100% do. And
Mhm.
neither of us are wrong,
Right.
but it is where we put our time. It's where we put our resources, our time resources, our money resources, and our energy resources. So it's that clarity that will give us the freedom to actually have it all, because then we are comparing ourselves to what we want, not what other people want.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like defining the it all, like having it all. What is it all for you?
Yes,
Like
yes,
that can look so different from
yes,
person to person.
yes, exactly, exactly.
And how can we overcome fears and pressures around letting go of some of those like not as high priority things? Like we talk about the B minus work and lowering our standards. That can feel really scary for some people. How can we start to overcome the fear around that?
Well, um, it is a learned muscle, Lindsay. It is not something that
Mhm.
happens overnight. I a lot of what I a lot of the work that I do, when women engage me, they think, okay, what's the magic app? Or what's the magic?
Yeah.
Like, if I tweak this part of my routine, then all of a sudden, all the other dominoes will fall perfectly in place. Bottom line is that is simply not the case. It is
Right.
so much mindset work. And that's this question that you're asking now around overcoming societal pressures of the things that aren't a priority. That is practice and practice and practice. It is a muscle you have to build. So, a really tangible example to bring this to life, my husband and I have different bathrooms. We built our house, we custom built our house, and that was the one quirky nuance that we both believed in. Is like, how do we find our own space? I don't need to see you floss your teeth. You don't need to see me floss mine. That does us no good. So, um, within my own bathroom, I have this stool and I call it the shit stool because all I do is just pile my stuff there. Now, old me before kids, even actually, that's not even true. Up until the first, like, let's call it 2 years of my kid's life, that stool was always clean because everything in my house was always clean. And then I
Mhm.
realized as I'm growing in my career and taking on more responsibility, as the kids are demanding more of me, because so many people think newborns are demanding and it continues to get worse. And everybody warns you, it does continue to get worse. Like as my responsibilities mounted, at the end of the day, I'm having to choose, very similar to my son's closets, do I want to put all this stuff away or do I want to do this thing I love? It is so hard to let that go in the very
Mhm.
beginning. But now I will tell you, when my job is done at night, because I value my health, I have to value my sleep. So I'm letting that stuff go because I am very clear that my health matters more, ergo my sleep matters more. That stuff is not my priority. My health is, my wellness is, my ability to operate the next day and be present and have energy. So I can't pretend it's easy. This is like I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Mhm.
But it is a muscle that I have built by continuing to anchor back to the hard decisions every day of knowing I, this is what I need to do. This has got to wait, and it's not an overnight thing, but that is probably the bulk of what I spend time with my clients on is just sifting through that and helping them unpack the mental blocks they have around being able to let go of non-priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you break that down so that it does become more manageable when you're looking at like a task load or like if somebody walks into your office and they're like, I just need to make it more simple or like where do you start with them? How do you help them break that down?
Yeah, some of it is around. I mean, it's a very complex question, so I'm gonna skirt it a little bit simply because there's a lot to unpack. But
Hmm.
sometimes it's exercises like getting them to diary their days for
Mm,
2 weeks, and
yep.
then we'll red pen it. We'll say so. I start when clients go through my program, the life management system. I start with, well, first of all, it's some mindset shifting, but then it goes very quickly goes into aligning and identifying your values and priorities. And you do that as an individual, then you do it with your partner. And if you are in a relationship, so from there, that opens the doors for us to know what really deserves your time and attention versus what doesn't.
Yeah.
And one of the exercises that I have people that are really stuck do is we diary their entire 2 weeks because so often we think that we don't have, that we're so busy. And it's like, well, yeah, but look at this hour and 2 hours and 3 hours and
Yeah.
4 hours here. It's okay that you spend time doing that. Going back to the TV, it's okay that you spent 4 hours binge watching that show or watching it with your husband or doing whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, You have to choose whether you value that more or you value this thing more. Somehow, some way, in order to change your results, you have to do something different. So it like we start to get really tactical about unpacking opportunities to where they make intentional decisions. And no decision is a bad decision, but it is the intentionality behind doing it that gives people that pressure, like relieves the pressure valve a little bit and will get them to a point of peace. So the other, like one of my other clients right now, I'm working with her on identifying her MVP. So her, for those not in the tech world, what her minimal viable product is. And that knowing what your MVP, like where your base standards are, can also help you mentally cleanse, but get aligned with the other people in your that share space with you on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And so for her, her standards of an MVP for the kitchen counter is very different than her husband's. Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's work through that. But that, like, defining what your MVP is another way for you to say, that's like, this is the base stuff that I have to do. The rest of it just can't matter. So if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is almost building your personal hierarchy where you might you might not get to the top things. It might take a lot of work to get to the top things, but we have to start with the base of the pyramid and solving for that first in order for you to ever reach self-actualization at the top. So I spent a lot of time on, like, we're going to assume that your basic needs, your food and your water and your shelter and whatever it may be, are cared for. Now let's move up a layer. And now let's move up a layer. And we keep moving closer and closer and closer to the top of that pyramid, but you got to start at the base to get there.
I like this idea of like our choices and decisions because sometimes it's obvious, right? You're like, you say no to the things you like wanted to say no to, but felt pressure. But then when you get past that, there's like sometimes you have to choose between two good things.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard, right? Because you're like, well, I want both, but I only have so much capacity and energy and time.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to go to the beach next year with my girlfriends, but that is time and money that I'm having to give up something else. So going
Yeah.
back to one of the reasons I work is because I want to travel. I want to take my boys there.
Mhm.
So I have my college group of friends that is going to the beach, and I either have to do that or I can go to Portugal, which is a new experience for me. Um, and as much as I have absolute FOMO that I'm missing this other thing, to your point, like, there's only finite resources.
Mhm.
Even if, like, money you can get more of, sure, often in the interest of more time. But
Mhm.
time, for many of us in the middle, like the guts of our career, time is our more precious resource. We have sufficient health for the most part. We have sufficient wealth for the most part. But time is a very hard resource to come by, and it happens to be the one resource we never get back. That
Mhm.
you can't find more of. You cannot, like, you can find a little bit more wealth. You can build a little bit more health. You cannot build a little bit more time, other than being super clear in what it is that you value and figuring out how to eliminate more noise.
Absolutely. So how do we bring behavior change and this mindset work along with process improvement into our life and work to get better results for ourselves and for our life so that we have that feeling of like having it all in our own definition?
Yeah. So I think that one of the keys here, and the reason that the system part of it is so we've talked a lot about mindset, and
Mhm.
mindset is ultimately what will lead to behavior change, because when you whatever you know when your head is in the right place, that is going to influence the type of behaviors you have and the things you do every day, and that's ultimately going to influence the type of results you get. So if you want to have change, it all goes back to mindset, and a lot of the mindset comes with insights. So insights, like, an example might be, oh, I have a wedding to attend coming up. I want to wear that dress. I tried on, make sure it still fits. Oh crap, it doesn't fit. Well, that needs to change my thinking of, I thought I wasn't gaining weight, but turns out I have. So that thinking has changed, which therefore says, okay, Courtney, because I had that insight, because I can't fit in the dress, and now I recognize that mentally, my behavior has to change. I have to start calorie counting or doing whatever it is I want to do, because ultimately that's what's going to lead to the results. So the mindset part really is the foundation of change. But the layer on top of that, as you just implied, Lindsay, around process improvement, is the systems that you build to make everything work. And one of the most fundamental systems that we can build in our personal life is repeatable processes. So, again, as Lindsay introduced in the beginning, I'm an industrial and systems engineer. For people who don't know what that means, it's a lot of manufacturing type stuff. It's Six Sigma, it's process improvement, process reengineering. And in fact, that's actually what led me to a career in behavior change, because so often people try to change the process without changing the behaviors, and those two cannot live without being in harmony. But the system piece of it, the process improvement piece, the more repeatable your system is, the more likely you are to show up and be able to actually create efficiencies and be able to get through it with half your brain on. So, as an example, like very tactically, because I think that helps people with application, I've already indicated I value my wealth and health, or I mean, my health and wellness. So, because I value my wellness, I want to be more intentional about eating in. I don't want to, I don't want to have to eat out all the time. It's expensive, but it also is not very healthy for me. So because I value that, I actually do meal planning. And I'm very intentional going into my week, where I will think through everything that I want. I will grocery shop around that. And that way I'm not having to think day to day to day in the middle of the guts of the day when things are really chaotic about what it is I eat, because I've already put in the intentionality behind thinking through that plan. But thinking through that plan is really hard the first couple times you do it. But now that I've created the system of when I do it and how I do it, I can crank it out in 10 minutes, because I have been intentional about creating an inventory of all the things that my family likes to eat, and built out that inventory of what the grocery list needs to look like for those things. So I can go to my handy dandy spreadsheet or my folder and browse through that list and quickly put the meal plan together, because I made that investment up front to be able to build that system. So now it's repeatable, it's quick, and it was worth doing that because it ultimately aligns with something I really value, which is my wellness. So I also think that in addition to repeatable processes being helpful for me because of efficiencies, repeatable processes helps everyone else in your life know how they fit in and know what their role is. Because so often, particularly women, we have this unspoken expectation we superimpose on ourselves to be the ones to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
We have kids and partners and like teammates and neighbors and who other people who can help make our lives possible and make it work. But we feel like we have to do it all. But when you have a repeatable process, it helps the other people, particularly the ones that you share space with at home, know how they slot in and know what it is they need to do. So that way you're communicating less, you're setting less expectations. You do that kind of stuff up front, and then the efficiencies continue to snowball as everybody figures out that routine. They know what's expected of them. They know how to show up, and you know what your responsibilities and contributions will be versus somebody else's. So it just makes everything hum in ways that you can't if you're living by the seat of your pants every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. It just saves so much brain space.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's like women talk about carrying a mental load. Well, that right there, the repeatable processes is one of the most foundational things you can do to release some of that mental load.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And do you have any examples on how our thinking drives our behavior and results? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but
I think, I mean, the tangible, like broadly applicable one is certainly like, hey, you put on clothes and realize that gives me an insight that helps me think differently. But it can be like in the workforce. Goodness. Okay. So, let me think of I'm trying to think of something that is broadly applicable to your audience. So think procrastination is a great example. So, so often if there's something that you don't want to do, it is like for me, it's PowerPoint presentations. I freaking hate PowerPoint, yet I live in PowerPoint. It makes me cringe, but I know because I know that my best thinking happens when I have uninterrupted time. So I have that insight. I've gotten the insight that I don't do well at creating my best work when I'm trying to fit in a half hour here, a half hour there. So because I know that, because I've had that insight, it's changed my thinking that, hey, Courtney, you should probably block 2 hours of time at a minimum to have uninterrupted thinking so you can really get in the zone. So because I had that thinking, because I had that insight, I now have that thinking. And now my behavior is if I have this deck I have to do, I'm going to block 2 to 4 hours on my calendar where that is where I at least start my outline, get my raw thoughts on paper and like organize my thoughts. Because then if I have a half hour here, a half hour there, sure, I know exactly what I'm doing because I've done the hard stuff. It's just formatting and building in content at that point. So that is the behavior that I do, which therefore influences the type of results I get. So the results being I get a higher quality product, I am less stressed, and I know that I don't have that kind of anxiousness building up to getting this done because I took care of the hard part first by blocking that time and giving myself that gift.
So, with all of the things we have going on, it's easy to go into our evening and our night and our sleeping time with so much spinning around in our head that, ever growing to-do list. How do we turn all of that off at night?
So one of the things that this is very tactical, and this is why I think it works. One of the things is managing your to-do list at the right elevation. So most people have a tendency to either not believe in to-do lists because it gives them stress and they just like fly by the seat of their pants, or they pronate in the exact opposite direction where they write down absolutely everything. I'm a believer in people hugging the middle of the line a little bit more there. So what I mean by that is you write down the things that have very clear deadlines
Yeah.
that you need to get out of your brain. Things like,
Yeah.
hey, I need to pay the bills, or I need to sign this permission slip, or whatever it may be. Like, how do you write down the things you need to do, give them calendar entries, or add them to a task list that pops up? So that way that thing actually gets done and you can get it out of your brain and it's cared for. Because so often the reason people can't go to bed is also because they're spinning around like, oh my gosh, what do I have to accomplish, or I didn't accomplish enough. Well, if the question is what do I have to accomplish, you need to not worry about that because you've already written it down. You have a reminder set, so the reminder is going to come off when it needs to go off. As an example, hey, I need to check whether or not I need a Chewy shipment for my dog food. Like I need to go check my dog food. So that way I am getting ahead of that shipment and I'm not getting a shipment if I don't need to. So I'm going to set a reminder for that. When the reminder goes off to say, hey, Courtney, in 5 days, your Chewy shipment's going to send. I know because I haven't thought about it, but because I put it as a task reminder to myself, I need to go check my dog food. If I have half a thing left, then that's my sign. I need to go into Chewy and update the shipment date. So perfect example of like the kind of trigger you want to know to put into the system. So that way I'm never going to bed wondering like, what did I need to get done today? Or did I get things done I need to do? On the flip side, if you can't go to bed because you feel overwhelmed that you didn't accomplish enough, well, one of two things is probably happening. One, you add everything to your to-do list. So as an example, I need to prep for this podcast. I need to fix my newsletter and prep my newsletter. I need to respond to these people. I need to send this person that, like, I know all that stuff. I know I need to do that stuff. Creating a to-do list for me that includes all of that and pack the boys' lunches and that's overwhelm. That's going to give me, I look at that list, I'm thinking, wow, how did I didn't get half of that done. Now what? But it's midnight. But because I know it's midnight, I know I need to sleep. So I'm going to bed. But so what I'd recommend to people is don't put everything on that to-do list. Put just the critical things you need to do. Make sure they're time-bound things most often. And then be at peace with that. And then for everything else, you get to value one or two things. Because particularly for parents, like people that don't have kids yet have a little bit more flexibility and that they get to work with. Whereas like putting food on the table for the kids we unfortunately can't get around that. I've tried. Those little animals remind you every time they need to eat and they're always hungry. But um it is so hard to get everything done that we want to get done, and we're never going to get everything done. So how can you choose that one to two things that you can go to bed at night and be at peace with? So as an example, Lindsay, we had this today. That's something that we need to prep for. That's something that you and I both needed to have prepped, and being able to do that and being able to go to sleep knowing we're prepared for tomorrow. That's a win. You know what's not a win? I don't know. I had a bunch of Christmas boxes arrive yesterday that I have not opened. I have not verified what showed up and what didn't show up. Guess what? I'm not going to do that at midnight because it just doesn't matter. Sleep matters more. I'll take care of that later today. It just doesn't matter. So I think it's to bring this in, I think it's managing your to-do list at the right elevation. And then it is, once again, going back to being really clear on what you value.
Right. Yeah. Making those decisions and being clear on what's the most important. And I like what you said too about like, maybe I do that later. I'll do that all the time where I'm like, yes, this is something I value and I want to do it, but I'm actually going to do that next quarter or next year even.
Yes. Oh, that's like 100%. How do you get realistic with your time? I think is very, very critical. That is a maturity skill. Actually, for a lot of people, that is a sign of maturity, is that you recognize that you can't do it all right now. There's a reason a strategy is called a strategy. A strategy is not do all the things and do them right now. A strategy is purposeful, intentional synchronization in order to accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, but it is certainly not do everything right now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. And I know you also have a free guide for us. Do you want to tell us about that?
I would love to. So in addition to if people liked what they heard, I would love for them to join me by listening and tuning into my own podcast, which is the Life Management System. Where I talk a lot more about the kind of things we did today. But in addition to that, I have a freebie. It is my guide to the top 10 things people do to essentially waste time. And of course, I can't not include the obvious, which is screen time. Like that is a huge time waster. So you will find that, like, spoiler alert, that will of course be on there. But it's not just the list of things, it's the things you do about it too. So a lot of what is on that list will probably surprise you. And in addition to sharing what they are, I share a little bit about the things you need to think about in order to manage that time suck. So you can get that at www.workingmomsmovement.com/time-wasters. And again, it is the top 10 time wasters that most people find themselves victim to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. We will have that linked below so you guys can go access that easily, as well as your podcast. So thank you, Courtney, so much for joining us today, spending this time with us, and really showing us how our values can really drive our decisions and how we spend our time and then how we feel about how we're spending our time, because I think that's also really important. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the peace. I'm wishing all of y'all peace and to how you spend that time every day. Well, thank you so much for having me, Lindsay.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world, and as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.